Ja Morant's decline has been crazy to watch, not on the court, but in the eye of the public. It truly feels like he takes every chance he can get to piss people off. Whether it's a bold take about him or his team, beefing with people online, or his most recent antic of showing off weapons on his Instagram, everybody knows that Ja is easily the most hated player in the league at the moment. What we don't know is how he's going to respond to the hate. Some players can take the hate in stride and elevate their game to a new level, while others fold under the pressure. This made me want to look at other hated players in recent memory and see how they responded to scrutiny that was aimed their way. So today, we're going to be examining the most hated player in the league each of the last 10 seasons. While you could probably make a case for LeBron this season, I think Dwight Howard edges him out for the most hated player in 2013. After coming off of an extremely tense year in Orlando where he was requesting trades and beefing with his head coach, the microscope was firmly on him after being traded to the Lakers in the summer where the additions of himself and Steve Nash were supposed to form a new super team. Since we were all used to the Heat at this point, fans were looking for someone new to root against, and Dwight Howard was the perfect choice. Los Angeles struggled all year, and even though they were never really fully healthy, Dwight was the first one to get the blame. Despite leading the league in rebounds again, he visibly looked worse than his Orlando days. His body language was poor all year, and he never really developed any on-court chemistry with Kobe Bryant. Fans started to say that Dwight was unserious about winning, and wasn't capable of playing with someone as intense as Kobe. I think it was more due to his bad back at the time, but fans were not about to use it as an excuse. It was from this point forward that Dwight fell out of favor with the public eye, and it was also at this same time that his prime pretty much ended. Technically, you can say that he kind of crumbled once the pressure got to him, but again, I do think it was more circumstantial than that. 2014 saw the Indiana Pacers go from a serious contender for the title to the laughingstock of the league overnight, and Roy Hibbert was the face of this scrutiny. Through the first 55 games of the season, the Pacers had a record of 42-13 and were sitting at the top of the Eastern Conference. Nobody really had anything bad to say about them. They were a complete team that hung their hat on the defensive end, playing hard every night. But once this GQ photo shoot was released, something changed. They went from hard-nosed to corny in the blink of an eye, and just like that, people seem to be over-rooting for this team. Coincidentally, Roy Hibbert fell off a cliff after this shoot was released. His numbers dropped across the board, and Indiana finished just 14-13 to close out the regular season. To make matters worse, Hibbert was borderline unplayable in the first round series against Atlanta, and almost cost them the series. In Game 5, he played just 12 minutes and scored 0 points. It got so bad that Stephen A. Smith proclaimed the following:
Roy Hibbert looks worse than Kwame Brown.
Clearly, Roy folded when the eyes were all on him, and he never regained his all-star form from years past. This one was super tough to pick, with the very likable Spurs winning the title the season prior, and LeBron winning a lot of us over by going back to Cleveland, so I'm gonna have to pick James Harden as the most hated player in 2015. For starters, a video went viral during this time exposing James Harden's horrible effort on the defensive end. Before this, we all kind of knew he was a negative defender, but this is what sparked the narrative that he was one of the worst in the league. And then to follow that up, he was coming off of an extremely disappointing first round series against the Blazers, where he shot below 40% from the field and the Rockets were upset in 6 games. Despite all that, he proclaimed himself as the best player in the NBA heading into the season. This seemed like it was a little bit premature. Without a playoff series win under his resume, most people thought this was ridiculous, and it was at this moment where people really started to sour on Harden. Even though nobody wanted to admit it, the beard kind of backed up his claim throughout the season. With KD missing most of the year due to injury, and LeBron having the worst year of his prime, Harden led Houston to the 2 seed out west and had some of the most impressive numbers in the league. He would only become more polarizing from this point on, as 2015 marked a split between how people viewed him. It seems like people chose how they felt about him during this season and haven't switched since. Stephen Curry had an amazing 2015, securing his first MVP and championship, but that still wasn't enough to convince the non-believers. Even though he was the best player on the best team in the league, many thought James Harden was more deserving of the MVP award. In fact, the Players Association held their own end-of-season award show, and they actually gave the beard the nod over Steph. And even though we had an overall very good series in the finals, Golden State struggled against a Cavs team that was missing both Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love, leaving many people to think that the Dubs only won this title because of injury luck. With an MVP award and a title that many felt he didn't deserve, the NBA community was very eager to see Curry fail. Steph heard all of this noise and wreaked havoc on the entire league. He had maybe the greatest regular season ever, putting up 30 a night on insane shooting splits to lead the league in scoring while also making an NBA record 402 threes in the process. Oh, and he also led the Warriors to a 73-win season, which was 1 win better than the 96 Chicago Bulls for the most of all time. He was playing so well that he was being seriously compared to Michael Jordan, and some people even started to believe that he was better than Mike. The fact that this was even a conversation infuriated fans across the world and had pretty much the entire basketball community rooting for Curry to fail. As we all know, the Warriors blew a 3-1 lead in the finals, and Curry played horrible in Game 7, losing the championship on his home floor. Fans seem to be just as, if not more, happy about the Warriors losing than the Cavs winning. It only got worse from here, but the hate was directed at a different player for the next few years. This was probably obvious. From 2017 to 2019, Kevin Durant was universally known as the most hated player in not just basketball, but all of sports. It was one thing that he left the team that drafted him to join a team that just won 73 games, but all of the antics that followed made people truly despise him. For starters, he got exposed for having burner accounts on Twitter so he can air out dirty laundry about old teammates and defend his legacy. As if joining the Warriors didn't seem weak enough, having to hide behind a fake name to say how you truly feel only heightened the narrative that KD was soft. And then it was reported that Durant was shocked that people didn't universally view him as the best player in the world after beating LeBron in the finals in 2017. This right here shows you how tone deaf he was at the time. Nobody took his rings seriously because of the circumstances in which he got them, so the fact that he expected his perception as a player to improve after all of this is truly comical. But unlike most of the other guys on this list, Durant didn't let the hate get to him at all. In fact, it might have made him even better. Nobody likes to talk about it because everyone hated him so much at the time, but Durant's 2017 and 18 finals performances are some of the best in NBA history. I think this is the main reason why he was hated for so long. Everyone hated LeBron during his Miami days, but it kind of leveled off after we saw him fail in 2011. We never got that satisfaction with Durant because he was just simply too good from the moment he put on a Golden State jersey. The only thing that stopped him was a torn Achilles, which is when we all decided to empathize with him a bit and gradually look at him in a more favorable light. Nowadays, Giannis is universally respected from fans and players everywhere, but back in 2020, he was dealing with a similar situation that Steph was a few years prior. Like Curry did back in 2015, the Greek Freak narrowly beat James Harden in a controversial MVP race. Once again, many people thought that Harden was robbed, and that Antetokounmpo was undeserving of the award. The combination of LeBron having his first injury-riddled season in 2019 and Durant tearing his Achilles, the media really started to make a push and proclaim Giannis as the best in the world. As we've seen in this video so far, people don't like when this happens, and it pretty much always leads to them rooting against you. On top of that, Harden was obviously still sour about losing the MVP award the season prior, and took a shot at Giannis in an interview, telling the world that he thinks he has no skill.
But I wish I could just run and with 7 feet and run and just dunk. Like, that takes no skill at all. I gotta actually learn how to play basketball, how to have skill, you know?
This just added fuel to the fire. Everyone started to run with this narrative that Giannis wasn't skilled and is easy to game plan against in the playoffs. Even though he won his second straight MVP award this year and led the Bucks to the best record in the NBA, fans eventually got their wish as the Heat upset Milwaukee in 5 games during the second round, which led to haters everywhere screaming that they saw this coming and that Giannis can't be that guy on a championship team. Although it was a bit of a slow burn, Ben Simmons was ultimately the most scrutinized player in 2021. 2 years ago, Ben was a very different player compared to the one he is now. He was a dynamic playmaker who attacked the rim and was also one of the best defenders in the league as well. He always had his fair share of haters because he never shot outside of the paint, but when there were discussions about whether or not he should be included in a trade for James Harden, people began to think that Simmons was being overrated a bit. The deal never happened, and Simmons ended up having a great season for Philly, making his 3rd consecutive All-Star appearance. He was also in contention for Defensive Player of the Year, and wouldn't shut up about it. Multiple times throughout the season, Ben would campaign for himself as the most worthy of the award, saying he was the best all-around defender in the league.
I do feel like I'm the best defensive player in the league. I can guard 1 through 5.
This just got annoying after a while, and gradually turned more people against him. But what really poured gasoline on the fire was his performance against the Hawks in the second round. Philly lost to an inferior Atlanta team in 7 games, and a big reason for that was the total collapse of Ben Simmons. He lacked aggression throughout the series, specifically in crunch time, and famously passed up a wide open dunk in Game 7, which signified that he was scared to shoot the ball in any way. With the total meltdown that he had, people ridiculed him endlessly. Even Doc Rivers, his own head coach, indirectly threw Simmons under the bus after they lost his series. I think this was ultimately a case of Ben trying too hard to enter his name into a category of player that he just simply wasn't at the time, and has had to deal with the repercussions of not being able to back it up ever since. Simmons has not gotten anywhere close to the All-Star level he was at a few years ago, and you may be able to blame the hate as a reason for this. And finally, we're at Russell Westbrook, easily the most hated player of last season. After getting traded to the Lakers, nobody really knew what to make of them. On paper, they had an ultra-talented big three featuring AD, LeBron, and Westbrook, but it was too obvious not to ignore that Russ's fit alongside these two was clunky to say the least. With none of them being particularly great shooters, and the fact that LeBron is best with the ball in his hands, Westbrook had to go off the ball for the first time in his career, and it was an utter disaster. The Lakers had a horrible season, not even making the play-in, and Russ was the one who was ultimately scapegoated by LA fans. The whole situation got so toxic that Westbrook said he had to stop bringing his family to games because he didn't want his kids to hear the nasty names that fans were calling him. Anytime he made a bad pass or took a bad shot, it was trending on Twitter seconds later. It was pretty much common knowledge by like January of this season that the Lakers clearly weren't a playoff team. But it felt like people kept tuning in every time they played just to see if Westbrook was going to screw up again. I don't think I've ever seen a player treated worse by a fan base than Russ was in LA. And that's all I have for you guys today. Let me know in the comments who you guys think was the most hated player out of all of the guys in this list. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys next time.